All right, so welcome to WorldViewer training, guys. This is going to go through how to create a full dome configuration and composition. So this composition is going to be tailored to the planetarium world and to the full dome configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and launch WorldViewer. Now, many of you already have your configurations set up, but I just need to make sure, and I'm using a full dome projector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by loading a blank composition. All right, so you'll see that our blank composition is going to come with a sky map background and Earth HD. So let's talk about this Earth HD a little bit. Some of you may have tried to play with this somewhat and found that it can be a challenge. This Earth HD is built into the software. It must be located in a chapter somewhere. So if you do not like this Earth overlay, just go ahead and hide that clip or put it in a chapter that you're not using, etc. But for the sake of training purposes, I am going to utilize the Earth HD clip. So there's a couple of things we have going on here that I want to point out. We have our WorldViewer screen, and so this is what we call our EZ3 configuration. And what that means is there's 3 windows to the WorldViewer screen, and sometimes you'll have more than that if you have a blended system, but primarily you'll have 3. And what that means is you have a composition window or your composer window. That's going to say WorldViewer. You're going to have a GUI flat surfer. That is going to be for your guest user interface. And then you have the full dome projector. Now, there's 2 ways to operate WorldViewer. The first is in conductor mode, and what I mean by conductor mode is you are triggering chapters to play by using these eyeballs here, okay? And you can trigger clips to turn on and off by using them in the clip properties. That I call that conductor. You are driving the show by actually launching chapters in the background, launching clips in the background. And for those of you that are doing this every day, it is a sufficient way for you to be able to present. However, after talking to some of you, it became apparent that sometimes you're having other teachers come in there, and there could be substitutes. And so there is ways to make this a little bit more self-sufficient and a little easier for somebody else to take the reins and utilize the system. And so what we're going to focus on today is not conductor mode, but a GUI-driven composition. And so everything I do, I'm going to create a user interface over in this window for individuals to be able to drive the system without ever knowing how to operate the back end over here. Okay. One, it's a little bit safer for you because it keeps people out of your clip properties if they don't know WorldViewer. But it also creates an experience that can be loaded into almost any other geodome solution that we offer with a few minor tweaks based on content. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that at the end when I switch configurations and show you what I mean. So getting started here, the first thing I am going to do is I am going to focus on just creating a couple of chapters. And the first chapter, I like to name my chapters, and I have created a naming convention for myself because when I'm building, as you get better at scripting, you will appreciate having these naming conventions because you won't have to go back and look at clips every single time you want to make a change. So when I deal with a GUI button, I end it with _BTN. If it's a chapter, I end it with _CH. And you'll kind of see me follow these as I go through. So for the first one, I'm going to name this main menu _CH for chapter. The second one I'm going to name geolocated _CH for chapter. And the next one I'm going to call Fulldome _CH for chapter. Okay, we're going to start with just these 3 chapters. Actually, let's go ahead and add one. So I'm going to right click and say new chapter, because I do want to make sure that you guys see how to use Science on a Sphere data sets, and so we're going to pull a couple of those in. So I'm going to call this SOS underscore CH for chapter. This way I know when I'm creating buttons, if I want the Science on a Sphere, I don't have to look back and see what I named this chapter. I know that if I have a clip that's a Science on a Sphere clip, I'm gonna have a different ending to it. So I won't ever duplicate the same name. So that is my reason for doing this. What I'm going to do is we're going to first talk about how to reuse clips inside of another chapter. There's two key factors to this. You have two types. So you can click in the box that holds your clips. Make sure you click on the clip over on the right hand side, because if you have two in there, it will paste both at the same time. So pick the clip that you want to copy or duplicate, and you're going to go to the chapter you want it to be in, right click, and you can paste a link or you can paste a clone. The difference between the two are this. A link is the exact same clip in a different chapter. So when it is turned on in one chapter, it'll be turned on in another chapter. If you make a change to the clip in one chapter, it will change it across all of the links. So a link means I'm never going to change these settings on this particular clip. If I paste a clone, it's going to paste all the same properties, but as a different entry in the XML file. Okay, so if you change the settings of a clone, it'll only change that one instance, not all the other instances. So it's entirely up to you. It makes the file smaller using links whenever possible, because you're actually replicating that entry when you do paste a clone. You're only replicating settings, not the actual file. So when you do export it, it's not like you have, two of those clips in there. But just to give you a heads up. So I'm going to choose link because the sky map is going to be the same for me whenever I use it. I'm also going to paste a link in of the Earth because the Earth is not going to change for me as well. So I can paste a link on this one. So now if you see when I switch over to the geolocated bubbles, nothing changes because the chapters are identical. Okay. But what we want in the geolocated panorama bubbles is a couple of different things. First, we want some content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the Panos chapter because I like to keep things organized. And I'm sorry, did someone have a question?
Nope, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and right-click, load new clip, and it's going to be a file. So let's kind of talk about this while we have here. You have image sequences. For those of you that have access to those types of data sets, you can use those here. You just choose the first image sequence in the folder, and it will automatically populate the rest of them. Web pages, I don't really encourage you to use this. You can import a web page, but it's a difficult operation to do, and you don't have much interactivity with the web page. So you need a pretty specific use case to do that. You have GUIs for guest user interfaces, and then you have templates, and we'll go into templates a little bit more when we start working on spouting for Worldwide Telescope and OpenSpace. But what I'm going to import is a file, so I'm going to choose File. I have all of my stuff in Demo Master, so I'm going to go to User Projects, Demo Master, Panos, and here's where I have a bunch of the Panos that I've downloaded from YouTube or other clients that have given us permission to use these different clips. And I'm going to go to Amazing Landscapes, and I'm going to choose the Northern Lights in Norway. So I'm going to choose this file, click Open. Now I have to tell WorldViewer how to render it inside the environment. And I want to choose this as to be a geolocated bubble. And what that means is I'm going to tell WorldViewer where to locate this particular clip on the world or on Earth. So I'm going to choose geolocated. I will come over here to the clip properties. So I'll click in this box here, choose the clip, and I can come to geolocation. I'm going to just change this to Norway because that is where it was located. And if you watch, when I click out of that box, it's going to automatically grab the latitude and longitude. There we go. So did everybody see it move over here? All right. What I also want to do is I'm going to actually launch that file so I can get a screenshot so that it doesn't just appear as this black circle. Okay. So what I'm going to do is click Fly To so that it dives into that clip. And I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit here. And there's a few things I need to do. As you can see, we have a very odd looking clip, and that's because YouTube has their own special type of cube map. And so I need to come down to Appearance and Type and change it to Cube Map. As soon as I do that, you can see it corrects the clip. Now if I come down to Advanced, I can choose Preload Image, and I'm just going to hit Save Screenshot. So now what it did is it saved this image as the picture that'll show on that bubble. Now you'll see I have already saved this in other trainings I've done a couple of different times apparently. So I'm not going to resave it, right? So I'm just going to save over the one that I have and click Save. Now, if I come out of this, you'll see that rather than just being a black dot on Earth, it now has that image, okay? So if I scroll down, you can see right here that there's the image instead of a black circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add like 3 more of these panoramas so that we have a few of them located in here. So we're going to, again, right-click, Load New Clip, File, go to where we have our files, and this time let's go with the lakes in Croatia. So now I'm going to come back down to this clip and do the same thing that I just did with the other one, only I know this needs to be a cube map, so I don't even need to play it because I know where it came from. So I'm going to change it to a cube map, and I'm also going to come to the preload image, and I know I've already saved a screenshot for this, so rather than playing it and doing the screenshot again, I'm just going to hit Browse for the preload image, and you can see right here I have that image. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it, click Open, and now that should show up for my image, and I just need to change the location to Croatia. And you can see it moving on Earth. There we go. Let's go ahead and put 2 more in. Let's do one in South Africa. We have a pretty good one of some elephants. So load new clip, file, user projects. I believe this one's in wildlife, and here we go. So we'll do the elephants, geolocated. This one I can't remember if it was before the YouTube changed their... Okay, so this one does not need to be switched to cube map because this one was downloaded before YouTube made their change. So I'm going to change this to South Africa. And I'm going to come down to Appearance and do my preload image. So here I'm going to have elephants. And there we go. So elephants is done, and we'll do one more in the US so that we have a little bit of maneuvering to do. Let's go to New York. I believe I have Manhattan. Here we go. This one I do believe I will need to change to a cube map. Yep, I can already see that we've got some distortion here. So I'll go ahead and fly out of there and know that I need to change this to a cube map. I can also change the geolocation. And we're going to change the preload image. I believe I've already got this one. Maybe not. and I don't. So we'll actually need to launch this to get that. Sorry about that. So now we have a few different geolocated panel bubbles inside of the world here, okay? And what I'm going to do is now we're going to create a user interface for this chapter, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure people can see this Earth on the user interface, but I also want the ability for them to go back to the main menu. So what I'm going to do is right-click in the GUI chapter, or I'm sorry, track. I'm going to say Load New Clip, and we're going to choose a GUI. This is going to be a touch screen button text. And so all this means is touchscreen text and touchscreen graphic is simply that, text or a graphic on the touch screen. A button means you can make it have an actionable item, okay? I'm going to use touchscreen button graphic because I make my own button graphics to have a design aesthetic. So I'm going to choose that. I will come to the file and I will browse for the button that I use, which is in my demo master. And I use the button WorldViewer Illuminati, and I do that because it matches our color scheme. So you can see here I need to do a little bit of altering, so let's come to the GUI position. I can come down to advanced, and what I like to do is I like to put a grid in, a 16 by 9 grid. So I'm going to do 32 by 18, which is still a 16 by 9 ratio, but gives me the ability to control my button a little bit more. And I'm going to come down to the bottom and I'm going to grab these bars and just rescale my button to fit nicely in that screen. So you can see that that comes in real handy. I could also use the scaling and offset to set that image, but I find it easier when I'm doing buttons to use the grid. So now that we've got the button placed, we can come to the properties and we can put the text in. And so what I'm going to do is this is going to say return to main menu. Okay? As you can see, I do that. I can change the appearance here. I can change the size of the text. I kind of like that look right there. And now I'm going to come down to GUI events. Okay? And what do I want this button to do? I happen to know the script, which is play chapter and then the name of the chapter. But because many of you may not know all of the scripting, I'm going to show you the simple way of finding that. So to launch the main menu chapter, normally I would click this eyeball and that launches it. To come back, I would click this eyeball. So if I want the code of or the script of what makes this get pressed, I'm going to just right click. I'm going to say copy OSC, and it gives me all the different ways that I could launch that chapter. Launch chapter previous, which is fairly obvious. It's going to go to the chapter prior to that chapter. Chapter first, so that's going to be always chapter 0. However, one of the things I like to do is I like to keep my buttons chapter title specific, and because if somebody accidentally moves that chapter like this, right, you could go like this, all of a sudden the order is off and your buttons are going to send you to random places. So I'm going to right click, copy OSC, and I want to do it by chapter title. So I'm going to choose that one. By clicking on it, it automatically copies it. I can come to this button's on click and right click and I can say paste and replaced. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I could also paste and append if I already have scripting in there. So what that means is if I come and click this button, it's going to take me back to the chapter main menu. So you can see now we are launched onto the main menu. All right. Whenever you're testing functionality, always close your composer menu, right? So close that composer menu so that you know you're not going to have interference, because some things are not able to be done when that composer menu is open. Okay. Now you can see I can come here and I can grab this clip. Okay. However, there is a new feature built into WorldViewer called input windows. And we had to do that in order to control third-party applications through WorldViewer. And so although this is working right now, if I add any additional inputs in this chapter, it won't bring that bubble up for me to fly into by clicking on it if I don't do a couple of different things. And so what I want to do is I want to teach you the right way right off the bat to use input windows. And so what we're going to do is we are going to come into the composer menu, and right above our GUI, I'm going to enter a new track, and I'm going to call this track GUI underscore inputs. And so you have GUI controls, right? I'm not sure what this GUI text is, but I don't typically use that. I put everything in GUI. But GUI inputs is simply that. It's a window to a different application or a different screen on the computer. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that no matter what, when we're clicking in here, it is going to camera 0. And what I mean by camera 0 is you have this camera, which is WorldViewer. This is screen or camera 1 or 0. Then you have GUI input, which is camera 2 or 1, I should say, 0, 1. And then Fulldome projector would be 2. So you have 0, 1, 2. If you had another projector, then it would go 3, 4, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, load new clip, GUI, and here it's not really crucial what I choose, but because I'm slightly OCD, I like to use button text because it's square and I'm trying to cover the whole screen. So I'm going to choose button text. As you can see, it's going to bring up a button. And I'm going to call this GUI input GLP for input for the geolocated panels. Okay. GUI just means it's a GUI interface for me. So that is one of my naming conventions, right? So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first come to GUI properties. I don't need it to have any text because this is really just a window for WorldViewer to recognize that I want you to be able to click on these bubbles inside of the Earth, even if I put other inputs in this composition. So what I'm going to do is come here and I'm going to go to the appearance, and I want the background to be completely transparent. So you have RGB transparency. So I'm going to change transparency to 0. These are all relative numbers, okay? So, 0 to 1 would change your color. So now you can see it's completely transparent, which is okay. I don't need it to be visible. I just need it to have functionality. So I'm going to come to the position. And this, because I want it to fill the whole screen and make the whole screen a clickable area, this is where I'm going to come in and scale it 1 to 1 with an offset of 0, 0, and that makes it fill this entire screen. I find it easier to do that than to try and drag all of these bars around, because then I know it's covering the entire guest user interface. So now that I've got the position covered, what I need to do is tell WorldViewer this is really just an input window. So I'm going to say input properties, yes, use it as an input window. Use virtual image. This is something you're going to do if you are trying to make that window appear as another software application. And a good example of that would be NASA's EYES kiosk, right? If you were using EYES kiosk and you wanted to control it completely through WorldViewer, so you could use like a remote user interface panel like a Surface Pro, then you would want to use the virtual image so that you could grab the EYES window and just display it here. So when you're clicking in this window, it's just like clicking in the EYES. We don't want that for this. We want to be clicking inside a WorldViewer, so I'm going to say do not use virtual image. I do want to go to a final pass camera, and I want that final pass camera to be 0. So now you can see when I am here, I have camera 0, right? So now I have control in here. So I could change it if I wanted to go to a different Final Pass camera by clicking in here. If I wanted it to go to a clip grabber or to the web page, so if I had put in a web page somewhere, this is how I would make that input window control the web page, right? And clip exe. So if I had an executable operating in here, which you'll see a little bit later, I would choose that, and I could go and click this from executable to executable, but we don't need that. So we're going to just use Final Pass Camera 0, and we'll go from there. So now this chapter is sort of ready, but not completely. Because when we go into one of these panel bubbles, okay, we still can see this return to main menu, and what we really need is a button that says exit panel. And so what I need to do is when somebody goes into a panel, and I'm going to apologize, I'm going to turn my volume way down here. When somebody goes into a geolocated panel, okay, I want them to be looking at it on the screen, not on the guest user interface, okay? And so what I want to do is I want to block this so they can't see it, but I still want them to be able to spin it around, right? So that they can control it however they need, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of that panel bubble. Okay, and in doing so, by the way, the keyboard shortcut to exit a panel bubble is going to be the space bar. And oh, sorry. Guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right, sorry, my screen got a little juggled there, so bear with me a minute while I get us set back up. Okay, sorry about that. So as I was saying, we need to make it so that the Earth is visible now when we're choosing panel bubbles, but not when the panel bubble goes in. Also, we want this button to go away, so we need a couple of different things. I'm going to create a new track, and I'm going to call this track, I'm going to just use the one that we had here, GUI.
Adam, I can't see anything that you're doing right now.
All right, hang on.
Now I just see your pretty smiling face in the middle of my screen.
How's that?
It's loading. Oh, okay, there. Now I can see it. What happened there?
My screen got disconnected for a second, so that might be why people were unable to see. So bear with me here. Okay, so I'm glad everybody can see again. So what I was doing is just changing this track to be called GUI GLP, and I just want that to be the GUI for the geolocated panel bubbles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, right-click, load new clip, GUI, and this is just going to be a touchscreen graphic because I just want it to cover the touchscreen. And so what I'm going to do is come here to File and find the one that I use. I made a 16:9 image. You could do the same thing. And what I use is this Illuminati WorldViewer background, okay? And so I'm going to say open, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with my input, which is make it fill the entire screen. And so if I come to GUI properties, I can say scale this 1 to 1, offset 0 to 0, and now you can see it's covering that entire screen. Okay. The problem is now it's covering it for us to not be able to pick things on the Earth, right? But I also need a button to exit the panel bubble. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this button, so paste a clone because I'm going to change the settings. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to change this to exit. And I am going to actually move the button up and over one so that it's lined up properly with this background. And I am going to then put an image here that just lets people know they can spin it around in here. So what we're going to do is say load new clip, GUI, touchscreen graphic, and I have a graphic that I made for that. Let me just pull it up. And here it is, the 2-finger rotate. Okay, and I'm going to use the white one. So I'm just going to come in here and grab that. You can see it's going to put it in. And I am going to just move it somewhere on the screen that makes a little bit more sense. And I don't think we need it quite that large. And so what I'm going to do is just leave this right here so that people know they can spin it around in here. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that in this chapter, when you load the chapter, these items don't load. Okay. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say right click on the eyeball. If the eyeball was hidden, if I right click on it, it'll be the OSC for showing it. If it's showing and I right click on it, it'll give me the hide function. So right now I want it to hide. So I'm going to click on that to copy it. And when I click on the chapter, it gives me all the chapter properties. And so on play, I'm going to paste and replace, and I want it to hide that clip. But I also want it to hide this clip. So I'm going to paste and append. And I want it to hide this clip. Paste and append. Now, on enter panel bubble, I want it to show these clips. So I'm going to come here and paste, and I'm just going to change this word to show. I could also do it by coming up here and right clicking on everything, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to change it by hand. Okay, and on exit panel bubble, we want it to re-hide them. So copy these and paste. Okay, so what that means is when the chapter loads, it's going to look like this. On the enter of a panel bubble, it's going to automatically hide those and display the others. See? Now if I hit exit, nothing happens. Well, it's going to take me to main menu because I haven't changed the functionality of that button. So what I really want that button to do, okay, is I want it to exit the panel bubble. So I'm going to fly in, and so I can right click on here and get the joystick exit, right? So that is how you have to have it as if you were going to click it. That will be the OSC command that you get. So we'll come to that button now, and we'll come down to GUI events, and we will change this now to be joystick exit. Okay, and what that means is when we are in that panel bubble, that we will be able to utilize it that way. So I'm gonna just quickly delete something here for a second. I want to come back over. So now when I load this chapter, you can see I've got all of these here. Right, so I go into it, it hides those, It gives me the new exit button. I have this area to spin it around, but the person isn't focused on the user interface, they're focused on the dome, okay? When I click exit, it's going to bounce me out of that. It's going to return the return to main menu button and take us back out to Earth, okay? So now we've got this chapter pretty well set to go. And what I want to do is I want to save as, and we are going to call this WorldViewer Fulldome Comp Training, and save it. Save often, guys. I've had many a time where something happens and I lose all of my work because I don't save often. I probably already waited too long to save, okay? 30 minutes is I could have lost a lot of work. So, that being said, what I want to do is now come over to the main menu, and I want to make this so we can start to navigate around. And I'm going to come to here where we already have this GUI, which is the GUI. This is actually a GUI background, but now I need to come here because I forgot to name that, and I need to change these so that GUI 1 is called GUI BG, or it will not recognize that clip. So that's why it's important to make sure you're naming your clips as you enter them, because once you do that, you will mess things up otherwise, okay? So what I'm going to do is come here and grab this background. I'm going to paste a clone in my GUI, and I'm going to call this GUI background underscore main menu, okay? And if you've noticed, all of my GUIs start with GUI, whereas the other things end with the type. I do that because when you're entering GUIs, it automatically puts GUI underscore. So I just ran with what the standard was on the system. Okay. So now, if you can see, now we have this covering, so we can't see the Earth. But there's a few things that I want to do just for aesthetics. I like to come in and tell the Earth to always main camera, which is the Earth. So the main camera is, your Earth. That's the main camera in the center. And what I want it to do is set RPM to -0.2. And what you'll see is the Earth starting to spin. See that? So that just sets an automatic spin on it. But if I'm going to do that, I need to go to the other chapters and say that I don't want the Earth to spin when it loads this chapter. So I'm going to set the RPM to 0, because when you switch from chapter to chapter, it won't stop spinning the camera unless you tell it to. Okay? So now if I do that, you'll see the Earth stops moving. We go back and Earth starts moving again. Okay? I do that just so that there's some movement inside of the dome when you're in main menu. It is entirely optional whether you want something like that, but that is the OSC command for that. Now, we need to create chapter buttons. So we have 3 chapters, but keeping in mind we're also going to be adding a chapter for open space. So open space _ch, and we're going to do another chapter, and we're going to do a worldwide telescope. All right, and we're going to go ahead and copy the rotation in of 0, so that if you leave the main menu and you come to that chapter, it will stop the rotations. So we need 5 buttons on our composition, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, and I'm just going to duplicate this button so that we have the same kind of button already in this chapter. And so the first button we're going to create is actually going to be for geolocated panel bubbles. And so you'll see that as soon as I come out of there, it changes that. Let's go to GUI position, and I'm going to start us out about right here. And that should be probably pretty good. So this is GUI GLP. All right, and I'm going to just duplicate this, and we're going to say GUI Fulldome underscore BTN. I forgot to put button on this one. Okay, and I'll come here and change this to say Fulldome shows, and we'll move this over so we are 3. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep doing this till I get all of our buttons. So just duplicate. This one is going to be for science on a sphere. And let's move it down. Let's copy this one. But first we got to come back and rename this, because this should be for SOS. So we'll come right here, duplicate. This one is going to be for open space. All right, and now I'm just going to move this one to line up with the rest. And we'll duplicate one more. And this one is going to be for Worldwide Telescope. All right, and this one we will put right here. And because I'm OCD, it's got to be even on both sides. So we've got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. So now we have our 5 buttons here, but we need them to launch the proper chapters. So the first one we want to launch is geolocated, so we're going to copy that OSC. I like to choose it by chapter name, and we will come here and say paste and replace. Oop, that was the wrong one. We want geolocated panel bubbles, paste and replace. So now we want Fulldome, so I'll come here, copy OSC, Fulldome chapter, choose the Fulldome button, paste and replace. Science on a sphere, come here, copy the OSC, paste and replace. Open space, copy the OSC, paste and replace. And one more, Worldwide Telescope, right click, copy OSC, paste and replace. All right, now what we know we'll have in every chapter, okay, is a background and a return to main menu. So we can take this background here and we can paste a link in all of these chapters, because we know we don't want people to be focusing on. See how I'm coming up here and re-grabbing the clip each time? If you watch, when I hit paste link, it reselects all those clips. If I were to hit paste link again, it would paste all of those. All right? And I don't want to do that. I just want to paste the background. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to copy this same return to main menu button. It's going to do the exact same thing, okay? So I'm just gonna paste a link because I'm okay with it being here. Okay, so let's look at this chapter once. I'm going to duplicate that once because for some reason it was after this one. So now what we want to do is we want to come here. I want to change the position slightly because I don't like when it touches my lines right here. But again, that's just coming down to aesthetic. So So this is the GUI return to main menu. And I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and just paste that clone. I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that. I meant to paste a link. So let me delete that. I want to paste a link because it's not going to change in any of these chapters. So now you can see we have enough, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to save. I always like to launch the main menu chapter. Hi Sarah, welcome. I like to launch the main menu chapter before I do any saving, and I do that because whatever chapter is playing when you save is what will launch on when you load the chapter. So I'm going to hit save. And now we are saved. But as you can see, I can now click this, go to geolocated panel bubbles. I can visit a panel bubble. It brings in this. I can spin it around. Right? I can click exit, choose another panel bubble, or I can return to main menu. So when I return to main menu, we come to Fulldome shows, and now we have our menu button. We click return to main menu. We could go to Science on a Sphere. It's going to do the same thing. Okay, so now we can start building these other chapters because our main menu is all set. All right, so let's start with the Fulldome show. This one's the easiest because all you're doing is importing a MP4. So I like to put it in the space track, but that's just a preference for me. If you wanted, you could create a track called Fulldome shows, but I've just gotten so used to putting it in space that that is what I tend to do. So I'm going to go and choose File, User Projects, Demo Master, Fulldome, and Seeing 3840 by 3840. Seeing is available with to download on the IPS website, so that is why I'm including it in this. Otherwise, you would, if you're going to share a composition with anybody, please understand they will get a copy of any of the clips that you have in here. When we export, they will get a copy of any of those clips. So if it is protected by a license you hold, make sure you do not include that clip in the export, which means you'd have to delete it from your composition. So I'm going to come in here. This is a fisheye dome master. So I'm going to tell it to render as a fisheye dome master. So you will notice now if I choose Fulldome shows, I don't like that initial image that loads, but it loads wherever you left off with, okay? But you can see this is now has our Fulldome show. So when you have teachers coming in and they're launching 2 or 3 Fulldome shows, you could really quickly and really easily create a user interface like this so they never even need to go into the back end of your software, okay? And other people could come in and launch the shows that you need to launch. And that's it. I mean, that's how I put a Fulldome show in. That chapter's done, right? So now we can come to Science on a Sphere. And does anybody have a particular data set they would like to see me pull in from Science on a Sphere?
No.
Okay. So I'm just going to grab one. All right. So if you go to sos.noaa.gov. Okay. Of course. Beautiful. All right. Let's see if I can get there another way. Let's hope this isn't blocked. And it's blocked. Okay, so we picked a really bad time to try and show SOS data sets. Let me see if I have any saved on my computer. We will do, what I'll do is I'll schedule a training once the shutdown is a little bit easier for us, and that has ended, and then we can get to that website. I will show you how to actually download those data sets, but in the interim, let me see if I have any on my disk drive. Sorry guys, I was expecting to be, never even crossed my mind that I would need to do that. Okay, unfortunately guys, it does not look like I am going to be able to show you science on a sphere. Let me just oh, here we go. Okay. Um, apparently, I have. Yeah, it does not look like I have the right type of content, guys. So, my apologies. What I will do, uh, anyways, when you go to their data sets, go to their FTP links. You can then save those files, the FTP link files, as images. Then you would just import that image as either a data set, or image sequence if it's image sequences, or as a MP4 or a space map if it's a video, right? And because it's science on a sphere, you're always going to make it an Earth overlay. That's the most important part. But what I'll do is I'll use one of my in-house image sequences to show you at least how to do an image sequence from science on a sphere. So I'm going to say load new clip, image sequence. I'm going to come to Earth overlays, image sequences, and we'll go temperature anomalies. And here is all of the different image sequences. So you can see I have them all in the same folder. I'm just going to choose the first one, and WorldViewer knows that it's an image sequence, so I'm going to choose it to be an Earth overlay. And now, if we play that chapter, okay, we will see those temperature anomalies, okay, coming across. Now, it's not the greatest resolution, but it is a data set we pulled from Science on a Sphere, so it is worth showing you. What I'm going to then do is come in here. I want to see the other, so I'm going to delete that clip. I'm going to load a new clip and choose image sequence because that one's a little bit better. Earth overlays, image sequences, and here we go. So this one's at least a little bit easier to see on the world. But can anybody see the problem here? I forgot to put an Earth overlay on, right? So this is actually just covering a big circle, not having the Earth behind it, so it's not making a whole lot of sense. I would have needed to add the Earth first, which I can just do by going like this, pasting a link, bada bing. Okay, so now we have that image sequence overlaying the Earth. Does anybody have questions about image sequencing? This is exactly how you do it for Science on a Sphere. The only difference is we would be downloading it from Science on a Sphere in front of you. So I will host a quick little session later this month or early February with downloading content from Science on a Sphere so that you guys can start to utilize those data sets. So I'm going to return to the main menu. Oops, sorry.
I have a question, Adam.
Sure.
If a data set has both an MP4 and image sequence to download, is there like a pro and con for choosing one over the other?
Quality, right? So if you can get a better resolution in one or the other, I would go that route. But really, it's a matter of preference, right? It's a lot more difficult to download an image sequence because you have to download each file. so it can be a little bit cumbersome unless you're able to download the root folder. So if there's an MP4, I tend to use the MP4. The only reason I would use an image sequence is if I only wanted part of the sequence, because the MP4 is going to include all of the sequence. So if I was only trying to show, 2 years and the image sequence is a 5-year cycle, I might just download the 2 years because the MP4 is always going to include the entire image sequence.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So now we're going to go into adding open space. And for those of you in the network, I would love to see you utilizing open space. I think you're going to be pretty excited today when I launch it and you get to see how far it's come. And if any of you are going to be at the Lunar and Planetary Science Conference this year down in Houston, you will see we will have an exhibit there with American Museum of Natural History and Open Space, where we'll be featuring the newest version of open space in our Geodome panorama. But that being said, let's go ahead and show you how to create and launch executables. This will be how you launch any application, eyes, open space, worldwide telescope, anything that we have spouting. For those of you that are fans of Stellarium, I've got a little bit of news for you. It looks like we may be doing some work to incorporate Spout into Stellarium, which would allow you to then use Stellarium the same way you will see me allow you to use OpenSpace here. So, but it'll probably be 3 to 6 months before we're completed with that, and I haven't gotten the final sign-off from the client, so until we have that, it is not a for sure thing. But in the interim, I'm just going to go ahead and quick do a save because we want to save often. So let's start with open space. So the first thing we need to happen is I want the composition to launch open space. And a few of you, I have talked to you about this. Yes, there is a waiting period while you're waiting for open space to launch, and that can be a little bit cumbersome. But if you want the best image quality with no stuttering on any of your other applications in WorldViewer, if you have OpenSpace and or UniView and or Worldwide Telescope running in the background at the same time you're trying to launch videos and stuff inside of this player, you may experience some stuttering. If you experience stuttering, it's because you're just trying to ask too much out of your CPU and your processing inside the computer, and your graphics cards are trying to do everything they can to run all of it. If you see that, close one of your programs down and make WorldViewer launch your programs, okay? Yes, you might have to find some filler space when you're talking to the folks, but either way, in my opinion, it's better than having lower image quality. So, first things first, load new clip. And what this is going to be a template. Right? So I'm going to show you how to create your own templates and how to use our system templates. Okay? A template simply means that all of the settings are pre-configured for something. That's it. So our system templates, we have quite a few that come with your application. The ones we're going to focus on today are going to be Clip Spout and Clip EXE. So we're going to start with Clip EXE. And I am going to do Clip EXE Sky Map because I want it to fill the entire dome. So I'm going to choose that one, and all it does is inputs a time script here, okay? And when I come down to File, what I need to tell the system is what executable do you want to launch? And that executable is OpenSpace, which on my computer happens to be located at C, open space. It's going to be in the bin, and you come down and find the executable and say open. So what that means is whenever this chapter is open, it will open open space. When this chapter closes, it will close open space. Okay? And what we need to then do is come in here, load new clip, template, system, spout. All right, and we want Clip spout sky map. All right, so as you can see, it says clip spout any, and we are going to come down here, and when we launch this, we're going to wait for OpenSpace to launch. Just give it a minute. It's a large program. Now, I have mine set to run off of the internet. When we set any of yours up, we will set them to run from a cache, right? So that would be the difference. Couple of pretty awesome things you can see when I maneuver around in here. You'll see I'm actually controlling it over here. Now, mine's going to be a little stuttery because I'm recording this session, right, on top of running OpenSpace, on top of running WorldViewer. So my apologies for any stuttering that you see. I'm just using a little laptop with a 1060 graphics card. So, and I'm using two Ultra HD widescreen monitors. So bear with me as my computer tries to maneuver through this. But here's some really, really cool things about OpenSpace that is new. If you look down here, you have a user interface menu now. So you can come here, and this is going to be like your toggle menu, your kind of like your escape menu inside a WorldViewer. It's how you quit it, how you get the native GUIs. Here you click Scene, and this is where you have all of your different options for your scenes, right? So you can keep coming in here and dropping these arrows down, and this is going to be similar to your navigation panel in Uniview. Then you have your settings, right? So you can come in here. This is where you have your navigation handler, your modules, right? And then you have your focus. So you can change your focus from Mars, Earth, Moon, right? You can also change your focus through your scene menu by coming to solar system, going to planets, opening Earth. And if I just clicked on this little focus looking button, that changes my focus to that. If I were to come to Moon, you'll watch down here when I click on that focus button, my focal point will change down there to Moon. Did everybody see that? And you saw on the dome it spun to Moon. So now if I start flying in, oops, sorry, I'm flying away. So if I start flying around the universe, and again I'm still flying the wrong direction. Sorry guys, can anybody tell that I am not a planetarian? So here comes our moon. Oh, hitting too many buttons. And now we have our moon. So I'm going to just pan it a little bit so that the moon is in a better location. But you can see I can come in and I can zoom way in on that moon, right? And if you want to learn controls for OpenSpace, I encourage you to visit openspaceproject.com. Let me just show you here. You can also download it on a personal computer for free, the beta version. If you want it installed on your planetarium machine, please reach out to me and I can set up a time for you. But here you can come in and you can go to the tutorials under frequently asked questions. And Carter has put a great set of videos together that will really show you how to use OpenSpace, okay? Guys, this is something that is definitely worth your time. All right, the visuals inside of OpenSpace, I think, Sally, you've seen it. Gosh, it's probably been almost a year ago when you saw it last, right? Or when was the last you saw OpenSpace?
That would have been in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, Pleiades,
So,
right?
a year and a quarter ago. Yeah.
So what's really cool is Carter works a lot with us here at the Illuminati. So if we can get multiple users operating open space in their dome, we could do some Domecast sessions led right from AM&H, and I think that would be really fun to do as a network. And it would really help uh, open space with their funding processing. And what I mean by that is NASA expects them to be doing a certain level of outreach. And so it would be great if we could let NASA know that we are, domecasting this throughout the network of subscribers, WorldViewer subscribers in Minnesota. So I would love to see more of you getting on open space and playing with it. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it. I'm not actually going to train on open space. I am just training on how to get it operating inside WorldViewer. But as you can see, I'm going to return to main menu, and I've got too much going on. I'm asking a lot of my computer, so I'm just going to close open space manually and hope that WorldViewer gets back to me. And that's what I get for trying to do too much at once. Does anybody have questions on how I launched open space inside of here? I'm going to reopen WorldViewer and redo that for you just so you can see. And again, guys, I apologize. I am recording this on top of using some pretty demanding monitors in addition to really demanding applications. So my apologies for that.
While you are doing that, Adam, I just have a request that maybe, are you planning on going till 1?
Was I planning on going to?
Yep. Till 1? You have the schedule until 1?
We'll go as long as we need.
Okay, so if you can maybe schedule in a couple, just quick 5 minutes where we can get up and take care of some things and know we're not going to miss anything.
Yeah, I was just going to actually say while I'm getting this reloaded, if we want to take, it's 11:11 my time. Why don't we take a quick 10-minute break and start back up at 11:20?
Thanks, much appreciated, Adam.
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and pause recording while we're doing that.
Okay, see you soon.
Yep. All right, we are back. So I'm going to really quickly just redo our open space because I made the mistake of not saving when we finished it. So it'll be a good little review for us. So I'm going to right click. The first thing we need to do is we need to load the executable launcher. So load new clip, file. I'm sorry, my apologies. Load new clip template. And we're going to go to System, Clip Executable, and we are going to do SkyMap because I want it to encompass the entire 360 degrees. We are going to choose the file location, which on my computer is C open space bin open space executable. Yours will be the same, assuming that your C drive has enough storage space on it, because open space can be quite large. And then I'm going to put in the spout, so right underneath that, load new clip, and it's a template, system, clip spout, and I'm going to choose clip spout SkyMap. And
Adam.
Yep.
When we do the spout for UniView, we're using that cube map instead.
Yep. Correct.
Is that okay?
Yep. So sometimes you might have to just play around with, if you don't know off the bat what spout you need for an application, try several, right? Because it really depends on how that application is sending out the display. And so basically, I'm not going to launch it because I don't want it to take forever and crash my system with me recording again. But if the spout didn't work, then you could delete that and try the equirectangular spout or try the cube map spout. Okay, because it depends on how that particular application sends out the spout. So each application can be slightly different. OpenSpace happens to just be 360 degrees, so you should be able to use the sky map because it's going to come out as a Fulldome master. That's how it's going to be displayed. But what I will eventually do is put together a little cheat sheet for you guys of this is the spout to use with this application. And when we set that up on your computer, I will also create a composition that has each of your applications spouting, so you can always come and see here what you used. So if you come and look at this clip, you can see we used clip spout sky map. Okay. If I were to use cube map standard, it would say clip spout cube map standard. All right. So that's how you know what spout it was that you used. So if you ever forget. In addition, you can create your own template. So once you've done it once, you could right click on this and you could say save as template, and it's going to go automatically to templates user. You can do this with any clip. So if you have panos or special image sequences that you've already configured it and you're going to repeat it, and Paul, you and I have come into this situation on your machine, this is what you would do, is just save it as a template, and you would just keep importing that template and changing the file. That way you're not having to redo the settings all the time. Okay? And it would keep the settings that you have for that clip. So what I'm going to call this is clip spout underscore open space. And now I know that I don't have to go to the spout file. I have my own template for my open space. Okay, and I could use that template. So that's how you create your own templates. I could also do that for these Fulldome settings. So if I wanted this to be a template, so maybe I came down to appearance and I came down to fisheye correction and advanced settings and I did some manipulating to make it fit my dome perfectly, then I would want to create a template from this so that every time I'm importing a fisheye dome master, I don't need to sit here and redo all of these settings again. Okay? That is the purpose of the templates for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do Worldwide Telescope. Like we did.
You better save first.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So let's save. But Paul got me before I got there. So, but yeah, you'll learn that once or twice, the hard way, unfortunately. So Worldwide Telescope. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna right click, load new clip, and we are gonna load a template, system, executable, sky map. Okay, so here I am going to go and browse for the Worldwide Telescope. This, unfortunately, is not located as easily accessible, so we're going to go C, Program Files x86, Microsoft Research, Worldwide Telescope, and down here you're going to have your wwtexplorer.exe. You have to know where your executable files are in order to use these third-party applications. And so, just know that ahead of time. We're going to come in here and we're going to right-click, load new clip, template, system, spout. I believe this one is a sky map as well, but we will know momentarily. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and I'm going to launch Worldwide Telescope. As you'll see, Worldwide Telescope is also another large program that takes a few minutes to launch. So bear with me.
Okay, while it's happening, Adam, when I've done the spout for UniView, it's executable every time. I just have a little spout, so each time I click on it, it just pops up on my screen right where I am.
Yep.
So, and you're saying that we can't do that with Worldwide Telescope?
Well,
or Open?
You can, but keep in mind, you're really eating up RAM and processing power because every application you have open, it's running at the same time that it's running WorldViewer. And so, for example, when I load the geolocated panel clips, right, even though it's not showing all of these videos at one time, it still has them loaded and running in the background so they can play on demand. Okay? And so even if it's not displaying it at that time, it's loaded that clip. All right. So if I have a lot of things happening in a chapter, plus I have Worldwide Telescope open and UniView, that's asking a lot of my computer, right? And so that is why I have gotten in the habit of launching these applications inside the chapter, okay? Um, and you can see now Worldwide Telescope is showing up over here. So if I'm going to minimize this so that it's not taking up so much of my screen, all right? So now I can control Worldwide Telescope in its window, right? And I am displaying it on the dome, okay? I could, change my location and fly to Earth. But as you can see, I'm not getting the right spout. Does everybody see how it's not displaying it correct? So that tells me we are not using the right spout. And let me see here. And so I need to delete this clip, and I want to try a different spout. So this is how you would. Now, it used to be clip spout cube map standard. Okay, so let's try that one. And that is what we should be seeing. Okay, so now I've got the proper cube map. So Worldwide Telescope is cube map standard. All right, and I'll send all of this out for everybody. So now that we've got that going, we can do a couple of different things. We can maneuver through Worldwide Telescope, right? We can change our location and fly tos. So this is another option for you inside of your dome. What I love about Worldwide Telescope is if you wanted to do student presentations in your dome. What's really awesome about Worldwide Telescope, and you can watch tutorials online, is you can create your own guided tours. This also means you could create an intro inside of Worldwide Telescope for your planetarium dome and play that video at the beginning of every show that you do. Okay? I don't know if I have the one loaded from one of our partners, but let me see if I do. Because if I do, it would be neat to show you what I mean by that. So just give me a second here. That would have been Samford. Okay, so I do. So I'm going to open that. And you will see, I believe, if it opens, it was made about a year ago, so I don't know if it'll play in this version of Worldwide Telescope or not. It's not looking like it. So it was made in an older version, but that was an entry to the Christianberry Planetarium that he plays at the end of, at the beginning of each of his shows. But it must not be updated. I must need a newer version from him because we have upgraded Worldwide Telescope. So I'm going to go ahead and relaunch that so that everybody can see again how it launches. Anybody have any questions about the spouting and abilities of OpenSpace and Worldwide Telescope, which again, for those of you that are inside the network, this is something you could start utilizing with just about an hour of time team viewing into your computer to get it all set up. Um, but it is stuff that I'd like you to start kind of looking at. What I love about these two applications is there is no ongoing charges to for support and updates, etc. So it's definitely something worth looking into. All right, so that does complete the portions that I was going to go through. What I want to open it up to now is questions. I'd like to see if anybody has something they would like to see me import into this composition, or if there's anything that I missed that somebody would like to know how to complete inside of here.
Adam, I have a question about functionality.
Okay.
So for one of my presentations, I have a whole bunch of just still images, that I'll just click through as I'm going back and forth. But my other challenge is that I use Google Earth because I'm able to fly down real close, and it has 3D buildings that pop up all nice and smooth and everything.
Yep.
And I can't do that on, say, UniView because the detail isn't good enough to get an immersive feeling with the students.
Mm-hmm.
So does that? I noticed when I was kind of playing around with OpenSpace and kind of investigating that a little bit, it seems like they have a better, more of a Google Earth surface that you can fly down to with a more 3D looking stuff.
Yep, I'm going to launch it right now. So when you start flying into OpenSpace, into Earth, you jump into the Esri maps. And so that being said, you can fly right down and hover. So let's say you had a school group in, you could fly right down depending on how good you are on a joystick, right? And geographically getting where you need to go. But you could fly right down and up over their school, right? And get the satellite imagery. And it's pretty decent, right? So if I were to fly into Earth, and what I'm going to do here is, bear with me one moment here. I want to put Earth back down on the bottom. So what I'm doing is just spinning it so that Earth is down in the front of your dome like you would normally have it. All right. And then I am going to convert back over to OpenSpace controls. Give me one moment. Let's go ahead. I'm going to relaunch OpenSpace now that we have it properly located. So one of the things that I would do, because what just happened is when the Earth was spinning, it made Earth appear over here. So I want, every time OpenSpace launches, I want the Earth to be centered at the front of the dome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say main camera, set lat goal 0 and lawn goal 0. So main camera, set lawn goal 0. That way it'll always open so that Earth is at the front of your dome. Okay? So let me just shorten this up a little bit so I can see all my controls. So we are focused on Earth right now, and I am, for the sake of everybody being able to see a little bit better, I am going to try to pan up here. So There we go. So now you can see more of Earth. Oop, a little too much. And let's spin. Not to the dark side. Sorry, guys, my computer is going a little slow with everything I'm trying to ask of it right now. And this is what I meant by, making sure that you have as little running in the background as possible. And you can see it makes a huge difference on how well it operates. Now, keep in mind, I'm using a little laptop, right? This is not like the IGs that you guys are running. So yours are going to be far more capable than mine. But you can see as I come into Earth, once we get past the atmosphere, it's going to convert to the Esri maps. Okay. I'm going to just kind of I'm trying to drive slow, so bear with me. So as I continue to come in and I get past Earth atmosphere, if I ever do, and again, I'm relying on internet, so we have to kind of go slow and wait for things to happen.
You are in the middle of the ocean. I don't know if that matters.
Yeah, I'm trying to spin right now. And you can see how it's tiling. It's just coming in slow is all because I have so many people connected to our meeting. But as you can see, what's happening is it's switching from one map to the other. And so to answer your question, Paul, if you were to use OpenSpace, I think it would be an alternative to your Google Maps. But we would have to get it loaded on your machine and see how you like it. But you can see it converting. I'm just really asking a lot of the internet right now. I have 10 people connected plus recording, running a very intense gaming engine and also OpenSpace. So I'm really asking a lot of it currently. But yes, to answer your question, it uses the Esri maps, and so you'd be able to do that same concept. What I'm not sure is you're not going to have, like, you get the 3D, almost like a mesh, right, of the buildings in certain cities, of course. Only Google Maps doesn't have everything done, but more than likely the areas you guys are in are probably done. But on the flip side, it's the problem with Google Earth is you get that 3D mesh. The difference is you won't have the proper geometry correction because it doesn't go through WorldViewer. But that being said, we are working. So WorldViewer 3 is going to be getting started here shortly. WorldViewer 3 will actually incorporate Google Earth and the ability to do what you're talking about, Paul.
Okay, cool.
Yep, but it's probably a year out. Any other questions? All right. Well, with no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. If you are interested in having me get you set up with OpenSpace and or Worldwide Telescope, shoot me an email, and I will get something on the calendar for one of the dev members to help you. Sarah, you're still not spouting UniView, if I remember correctly, so I would like to get you set up for spouting. And if anybody else has any questions, you can email me. It'll probably take me a couple of days to get this video finished and ready for output. And once that is ready, I will send out a link for everyone.
And Adam, I'm going to uninstall the OpenSpace that
Yes.
downloaded?
Yep. All you really need to do is delete the folder. So it probably went to C open space or C program files open space, something like that. You can just delete the folder. You don't need to go through the whole uninstall method.
Okay.
All right, everyone. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, guys.